Good afternoon. I'm Maryanne Law-Sunde. I'm a longtime member of the Vineyard. My identity with River Heights Vineyard is having the privilege of being the mom of one of your pastors, Justin Law. We've had an energizing time during the last hours together, focusing on diversity, especially the me and the you. I've been asked to share some thoughts now on the we. How do we interact with each other as we seek to be devoted to God, devoted to each other, and devoted to diversity? The scripture foundation for putting what we believe into action is the New Testament book of James, written by Jesus' earthly brother. It's a powerful, practical 5 chapters, and I encourage you to find time during the week to read it for yourself. James is clear that Jesus expects us to put belief and action together. Belief and action are to work together. Combining belief and action happens in stages. First, we have knowledge. We become aware and we know something new. It's in our head. Second, we believe. Knowledge moves from our head to our heart. We believe that what we know is true. Third, we act on that belief. We behave in a way that reflects what we believe. As James writes, fig trees produce figs, not olives. Grapevines produce grapes, not figs. I believe it's helpful to think about our own foundational experiences in actually interacting with others in diversity. It's likely that those early experiences are significant in shaping our heart attitudes toward diversity as we become older. Personally, in childhood and in adolescence, for me, diversity meant diversity of religious denominations. I was a Methodist preacher's kid. In elementary and middle school, the family of my very best girlfriend were faithful Jews. I often had Friday overnights in the Auerbach home, which meant I also attended Friday Jewish services in the synagogue with my blonde hair, my gold cross necklace, and the black Jewish prayer cap on my head. They were a very welcoming and friendly group of people. I was also welcomed into participating in the family observances of the Jewish holiday festivals in the Auerbach home. I had plenty of questions from my dad, and he was very faithful in taking the time to answer those questions. I was greatly influenced by the Auerbach's faithfulness, and it later became the motivation for me to take a month-long immersion study regarding the Holocaust when I was in college, and that month and that study was a life-altering experience for me. As a teenager and in college, I was in love with a Catholic young man and became incorporated into his family life and traditions, which resulted in a significant family stress and conflict, especially for my father. I learned to pray with the rosary, and in those years, I grew in the habit of contemplative prayer. And then, as life would have it, I met and married a Methodist pastor, much to my parents' great relief. And then, who knew, we would take a spiritual journey that led us to John Wimber and into the Vineyard with its worship, and it's prayer and Holy Spirit gifts and service to those in need. God was very clear that my identity was in Jesus Christ. And as to the variety within his church, God clearly communicated to me. He said, it's not either or, Maryanne. It's all for you. When I was in my late 20s, I was in a session led by a Catholic priest who served on the Rosebud Indian Reservation in South Dakota. That 60 minutes impacted me for a lifetime. The priest asked the group to stand up and to form a circle. And so we did. We all stood up, we formed the circle, everyone was in the circle, and we were all facing towards the center of the circle. And then he said, now, stay where you are in the circle and turn around and face outward. When we did that, we quickly became aware that we could only see a very limited part of the room. He said, what do you see? Well, we saw what was directly in front of us and what we could see if we turned our head left or turned our head right. We realized we couldn't see anything that was behind us. And if we were going to know what was behind us, we were going to have to ask the people behind us what they were seeing from their perspective and their vantage point. It was a powerful lesson for me. There were 3 things that I understood. First, that there were lots of other people seeing things that were different than what I was seeing. Second, that I needed to learn to ask people what they were seeing from their vantage point, from their perspective. And third, I needed to develop the skill of clearly describing what it was that I was seeing from my vantage point and perspective. I've learned that asking questions makes me vulnerable. Even the questions that I ask reveal my own assumptions. Less than 3 weeks ago, I was in a small group among this community where we were getting to know each other by sharing where we grew up. One of the men in the group said that he grew up in Thailand before he was a teenager and moved to the United States. I was interested in knowing more about him. So I said, can I ask you if you were in a refugee camp before you came to the United States? And he said, oh, no, I'm an American citizen. My father exported Thai products to the United States. He was so nice about it, and he shared a little bit more detail. And right then I realized that I had learned more about him, but I had learned more about me and my assumptions. So, we interact in a devoted way by wanting to know the perspective of others, by asking good questions, which includes listening well, and by being willing and able to share our own experiences. From my experience, those skills take practice and grace. Now, let's think about sitting at a table. Specifically, let's think about making more room at the table. Maybe it's moving closer to get more people at the table. Maybe it's expanding the table. Maybe it's getting up and giving someone else our seat at the table. Maybe it's adding more tables. The point is that we're making space for others. And it's best if we're being welcoming as we make space for others. The power of smiling at someone, of greeting someone by name, of motioning someone to come sit next to us, to move over to make room for someone is huge. We do it for friends. Doing it for others we don't know very well yet gives the message that we expect to be friends. I'm going to share with you a story about Thomas Jefferson that my husband just shared with me last week. During his days as president, Thomas Jefferson and a group of companions were traveling across the country on horseback. They came to a river that had left its banks because of a recent downpour. The swollen river had washed the bridge away. Each rider was forced to ford the river on horseback, fighting for his life against the currents. Each rider was threatened with the very real possibility of death, which caused a traveler who wasn't part of the group to step aside and watch. After several had plunged in and made it to the other side, the stranger asked President Jefferson if he would carry him across the river. The president agreed without hesitation. The man climbed on, and shortly thereafter, the two of them made it safely to the other side. As the stranger slid off the horse onto the dry ground, one of the group asked him, "Tell me, why did you select the president to ask this favor of?" The man was shocked, admitting he had no idea that the man he had asked was the president. "All I know," he said, "is that on some of your faces was the answer no, and on some of the faces was the answer yes." His was a yes face. When we are devoted to God in diversity, more and more we will have yes faces for each other. We thought about listening, asking questions, describing our own perspective and experience, making space for others. Now I will add becoming interpreters for each other. I believe that this is a wisdom gift. It's understanding that there is more that is happening than meets the eye, and being helpful in the moment or over time in the process of figuring it all out in grace. Engaging in diversity includes times of conflict. Engaging with one other person includes times of conflict. Becoming interpreters for each other when we are in distress, when we feel distress, when we feel angry, is a great gift. When we have no faces for each other, we often look and act angry. Anger, like any other feeling, has a spectrum. Irritation to rage. Anger is a secondary emotion. We look and act angry when we are experiencing and have not had time or help in dealing with a primary emotion, a first emotion. I'm going to slowly list 9 primary first emotions in groups of 3, and you've experienced them all. I will list them twice in case you want to write them down. Fear, sadness, disappointment. Fear, sadness, disappointment. Embarrassment, inadequacy, shame. Embarrassment, inadequacy, shame. Loneliness, boredom, fatigue. Loneliness, boredom, fatigue. Here is an example of this kind of experience that I witnessed this month. My 13-year-old grandson, Kellen, brought his best buddy, Vikram, to a first-time cabin weekend. They are both very bright and very verbal. The weekend started with Kellen's parents picking up Vikram at 3 o'clock Friday afternoon. The boys talked during the 3-hour drive to the cabin. They talked all evening and into the night. On Saturday, they swam and talked. They kayaked and talked. They were on their electronic devices and talked. They ate meals and talked. And Saturday evening, they engaged in a well-matched chess game. Vikram made the last move in the chess game, and Kellen suddenly crumpled. Tears came to his eyes, and he covered his face. Vikram just looked at him. Kellen's mom, who had been doing dishes, stopped, looked at Kellen because the talking had stopped, and said kindly, "Kellen, are you crying?" Vikram said, "He's gotten emotional." Kellen's mom said, "Kellen, come here for a minute. I have a project I need you to do for me, please." And Kellen and his mom went into the boys' bedroom together. Kellen's dad engaged Vikram in another game of chess. In the bedroom, Kellen sat on the bed, still in tears, and said to his mom, "I don't know why I'm crying." And his mom said, "I know why. You're an introvert, and Vikram is an extrovert. You've been interacting constantly since 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Normally, you would be taking private times to read, to think, to just be by yourself. You are exhausted. You need to take some time by yourself to just be." Kellen sighed and with great relief said, "Oh, thank you, Mom." About 30 minutes later, Kellen came out of the bedroom smiling, announcing, "I finished the project, Mom," and happily re-engaged with his friend Vikram. My daughter-in-law was not only a supportive parent to her son that evening, she acted as a very good friend. She interpreted what was happening. She lifted the confusion, and she paved the way for peace. I firmly believe that when the scriptures say to pray for the greater gifts, that the wisdom to interpret our experiences for each other with grace and mercy is a greater gift, especially as we seek to value and to live together in diversity. I wanted to share one last insight from my years as a parent educator and a community organizer. It's about power. There's positive power and there's negative power. Negative power has three basic components. First, with negative power, I want to be important. Second, I feel capable. Third, I know how to influence people negatively through physical or emotional intimidation, whether it's temper tantrums when I'm 2, or whether it's threats, or whether it's inflicting physical pain. Having positive power has three components. First, I know I'm liked. Do you know that liking someone is very empowering? Second, I feel capable. And third, I know how to influence people positively. I've learned to listen, to smile, to be grateful, to say please and thank you, to be responsive when a request is made, to be aware of a felt need, and to be helpful. As Christ followers, being devoted to each other in diversity means we will strive to operate in positive power. First, we will strive to become friends with others who are not just like us. We will want to like others who are not just like us. Second, we will strive to help people become and feel capable. Therefore, we will understand the difference between equality and equity. Equality means that we're free to stand with each other. Equity means that we have access to the same resources and opportunities. An example might be athletics regarding gender. When the boys and girls both have teams, that's equality. However, it's not equity until the girls' teams have access to the same equipment, the same training opportunities in terms of times and places, the same skilled coaching support, even the same upcoming pool of experienced young players. Third, we will strive to influence others positively. We'll strive to be honest and respectful. We will strive to be firm and friendly. We will strive to tame our tongues. We will strive to bless out of our abundance of resources and our abundance of grace and mercy that have been given to us through Jesus Christ. Finally, what I've shared with you will be less important than what you share together in discussion, which in itself is the power of interaction. Discussion together is the power of synergy. That's creating something that is far greater than the simple sum of the individual parts. Sharing together is like the musical beauty of wind chimes, as the wind causes the various independent pieces of wood and metal to connect with each other. May you keep enjoying with each other what you are experiencing together in your own diversity. You're done.